Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you might be. My name is Kevin Michael Grace, and this is the KMG Show. Well, I might as well start with some more tech talk here. You will have noticed a different aspect because I'll explain to you what the problem was. My computer setup, my desktop computer setup, is on a round glass table. That is not, it's meant for eating on. It's not a computer table, which has presented a bunch of problems. For instance, I had a little step up, which I put underneath the monitor so that my eye level would be in the middle of the screen, because it's tiring to look down into a screen, and it foreshortens it as well. But I couldn't make the ring light that I bought. It wouldn't work behind the computer because the computer was too high. But since the table is rather large, I've had to push the monitor way back, as well as lowering it so you can see the microphone, which you have never seen before, and you can see my tea, which you've never seen before, and you can see the computer, which you've never seen before. We'll see how this works out. I'm working with what's here where I live. There's no point in me buying furniture because I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I'm getting the impression now I might be out by the end of this month, or certainly it would seem by the end of the year. I left a bunch of stuff when I moved from the apartment I was in Victoria. I lost my computer desk, which was just perfect. It was the perfect shape, the perfect size, and it had a little boost for the monitor, but I had to leave that behind. I had to leave my beautiful 32-inch monitor behind as well. And as I've discovered, there's simply no point in when you're in transit in buying big things that won't fit in suitcases. So that's where we are today. The monitor is so far away, I might have some trouble reading the chat. KMG, you're stressing over trifles. We're here for the commentary, says SB. Well, a lot of people have commented on this and mocked my, quote, boomer struggles with my setup. So I just thought I'd let everyone know, just keep everyone apprised of exactly what is going on. Now, it's going to get dark here, well, darker. There's 0 hours of sunlight here where I'm living, officially, and I may have to boost the light later on, but it looks acceptable for now. Matt Forney says, looking sharp, Kevin. Well, thanks, Matt, and I'm glad that you have tuned in. Head McNeck says, Kevin, why do you think the president's legal team is trickling out white pills to keep us calm? Do you suppose they actually have a Kraken? They're slow rolling this. And we have, what, half a dozen, 10 different states which have been called into question in all manner of ways. And I think it's going to, I think we're going to see more and more and more and more of this. Has KMG ever reviewed my dinner with Andre? No, I have not, SB asks. Claire Caw thinks it looked better before. Well, you see, before I cut off the tech talk portion of the broadcast, the problem that I had was that since we've switched to standard time with the sun going down an hour earlier, about an hour into this live stream, the picture quality was absolutely frightful. So, I want to talk, before I get into the election recounts, I want to talk about the subject of we and they. That there is there's a war against white people in North America. There's no question about this. The Great Replacement is going on, and the Great Replacement, again, if you believe in the Great Replacement and you think that it's a good thing, a necessary thing, well, then it exists. If you do not agree with the Great Replacement and you think that it is an unnecessary and bad thing, then you are dealing in misinformation or disinformation. You are a conspiracy theorist and obviously guilty of white supremacy, white nationalism, and the like. But even though the minorities are not yet a majority in Canada or the United States, they act as if they are. You may have heard of this notorious incident out of Michigan, and there's a bunch of stories on this, but I'll start with one from Tom Pappert at the National File. Michigan Democrat appeared to threaten GOP officials' children until she certified election results. On November the 17th, it was initially reported that Michigan's largest county was unable to certify its election results, noting that in 71 precincts, the vote totals exceeded the number of registered voters. Immediately, Democrats began accusing the two Republicans who refused to certify the results of racism, with Democrat Abraham Ayash suggesting that GOP election official Monica Palmer's children will suffer the consequences for her actions. Quote, "What that tells you is Ms. Monica Palmer from Grosse Pointe Woods, who has a history of racism, are deciding to enable and continue to perpetuate the racist history of this country," said Ayash to Palmer, who was at the time refusing to certify Wayne County's election results. Quote, "I want you to think about what that means for your kids who probably go to Grosse Pointe North and when they see all their Black classmates," unquote. There's no question that this was a threat directed at Monica Palmer's children. But who is this Abraham Ayash? He has recently been elected in Michigan. As you might guess from his name, he is not American old stock. In fact, his parents came to America as refugees from Yemen. Yes, Yemen, that intellectual hotbed. But of course, there are a great many Arabs in Michigan, and one might ask the question, who thought that it was such a wonderful idea to bring so many Arabs to Michigan? This has been a problem for a very long time. I remember at the time of the first Gulf War, watching amazed on CNN when Arab Americans, if you can call them Americans, were openly demonstrating in favor of Saddam Hussein and denouncing their own government. And this is on video. What he said is on video, and you can find it easily enough. To continue from the national, one more thing about Yemen. Of course, the United States government is allied with Saudi Arabia in putting down a rebellion in Yemen, and the costs have been fearful to the people of Yemen. This is our immigration policy in both Canada and the United States, is that we bomb the hell out of foreign countries halfway around the world, and then we invite the survivors to live in our countries, and then we hope that they don't hold a grudge. But of course, a great many of them hold a grudge, as one might expect them to do. But no. It's magic dirt here. As soon as they set foot in Canada and the United States, they leave all that parochialism behind. Well, no, they don't leave it behind, because that is the whole point of multiculturalism, of that you never leave it behind, and you are encouraged to never leave it behind, and you are encouraged to put it at the very top of your priorities, of your values. I am from X part of the world, and you people graciously let in me or my parents, but now I'm going to lecture you ceaselessly about what a wicked country you have, that it has always been wicked and it is still wicked. And I can say this because I don't come from this country. I'm not really part of this country. I've been put on earth, apparently, to move to all of the Western countries and tell them that they're horrible, and they have to put people like me in charge, or that's further proof that they are horrible. Anyway, to continue from the National File, last week, National File reported that votes were cast using the names of at least 10,000 dead people using mail-in ballots, with around 2,000 of these fraudulent votes cast by individuals who, if alive, would have been over 100 years old. One vote was cast by a man born in 1902 who would have been 118 years old on November 3rd had he not been long deceased. Biden also suspiciously received an unimaginable 100% share of the votes when counting resumed during the early morning hours following the November 3rd election. Michigan was also the first point of discovery for the now infamous Dominion voting software that some say has systematically defrauded President Donald Trump out of votes across the country. In Michigan, it was discovered that in one small county, it adjusted approximately 33% of the vote total, or 6,000 votes, to Joe Biden. In short, it switched these 6,000 votes originally cast for President Trump to the man now declaring himself president-elect. Yes, and here's a story from the Federalist. Michigan Democrat doxes children of Wayne County election official. Yeah, and more on this doxing question in just a minute. Yes, you, Miss Monica Palmer from Grosse Pointe Woods, which has a history of racism, blah, 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 blah. Yes, you are accused of being a racist. And it's really the modern equivalent of when did you stop beating your wife? Or more to the point, why are you still beating your wife? Palmer and others noted that some precincts in Wayne County were out of balance, meaning the number of ballots processed were different from the number who signed in, the Detroit Free Press reported. Ayash, however, did not accept Palmer's skepticism and instead continued to berate her for being a bigot and a partisan. Know that we see what's happening now, that this is nothing other than Jim Crowing that is going on right now, and recognize the facts. The Republican Party's major candidate has sued over 25 times across the country. Know the facts. You as a board of canvassers do not decide who is to be elected, the voters to know the facts. Shortly after Ayash's verbal attack, both Republican board members changed their votes to certify the election. That is to say, they were terrorized into changing their votes. One might think that the Department of Justice might move very quickly in this regard, but no, I guess this would be seen as interfering with an election and possibly anti-Black. Possibly anti-Black. Abraham Ayash describes himself as state representative-elect, House District 4, son of immigrants, James Madison MCU alum, lover of environmental justice, M4A, whatever that is, transparency, first robotics, and coffee, think different. Well, he seems to think like pretty much every other member of the Arab cohort in the United States. And he retweets someone quoting Samuel Adams. Yes, I'm sure he knows all about Samuel Adams. And he boasts, I got a squad with me. Of course, the squad, as it's known, is made up of, let's say racial minorities who are distinguished by, let us say, less than a love of the United States. 9 hours ago, he tweeted, yesterday, after a failed attempt to disenfranchise Detroit voters, folks, not people, but folks, because he's a folksy kind of Arab American. Folks spread a fake story that I threatened and doxed. Doxed is in scare quotes, Monica Palmer. Y'all, I didn't even know what doxing was. Now the attacks won't stop. I won't be bullied into silence. Yes, the squad cries out in pain as it strikes you. I'm supposed to believe that a leftist activist does not know what the word doxed means. And what about this? We got the folks and we got the y'all. You may have noticed this in recent months, particularly in recent weeks. This is some sort of, I don't know, dog. Let's not call it a dog whistle. Let's call it a cat whistle. Oh, yes, I'm down with the people, those disgusting deplorables, but I'm down with them. See, I use the word folks and I use the word y'all. You're not from the South and you're not Black and you are not fooling anyone. Penelope Maynard, described on Twitter as Catholic nationalist, traditionalist, America first. Yes. She tweeted, Yemeni anchor, Mr. Ayash, threatening white woman, quote, think about what this means for your kids, unquote. And I'm going to get vulgar here because that's what she wrote. And I think it's apposite. Fucks from tier 3 shitholes, countries that neither meet standards for elimination of human trafficking nor demonstrate any effort to do so, are ruling over us. Elites in fact, encourage first-generation refugees from third world shitholes run for any kind of elected office. There are millions of them here, ready to supplant you. Let that sink in. And never forget that Zeo Pygmy Ben Shapiro instructs Callow students, we are a creedal nation. Yeah. So I find it very curious that people from that part of the world somehow they're pretending that they and Black people are like this, because they're traditional friends and allies. J. Law tweeted, oh, the irony of an Ottoman Empire descendant whose ancestors were still enslaving Caucasian women in 1886, lecturing a woman about the history of racism in her Grosse Pointe community. Mockingbird tweeted, anytime an Arab starts whining about racism, I ask them innocently, hey, what's the Arabic word for Black people? It's abid, by the way, which literally translates to slaves. That's the word they use in common parlance, much like you or I would say blacks or Black people. Slavery in Saudi Arabia was not banned until, I believe, 1961. This is a marriage of convenience, I suppose you could say. But what I don't see is what the Blacks get out of it. Because the Arabs clearly believe themselves to be superior and clearly intend to supplant them in every possible way. I see the light is fading here, but it still looks not too bad. Let's take a look at the chat here. More tech updates, yes. Okay. But it's no big deal, says random number generator, as long as we can hear you. Yeah, I suppose so, but this isn't a podcast. It is a live cast, and the visual element is important. We've been reading a lot with people wearing face masks that the cues that people get, the physiognomical cues, are missing. So, I give you the video as well as the audio. Okay. Eche Lux, Trump is planning a coup d'etat. Everyone freak out. Yeah. Yeah, it's Trump that's planning the coup d'etat. Exactly. Head McNeck, the Great War, the Great Society, the Great Leap Forward, the Great Replacement, the Great Reset. I'm getting very sick of great things. Brent Studemeyer says whites become a minority in USA wouldn't be half as bad. Still thought of a thing if it weren't for all the anti-whiteness being pushed by the media, academia, and the entertainment industry. Yeah. Minorities tend to feel persecuted, whether they're persecuted or not. And when they come to power through war or immigration, which in this case is another form of war, they get their revenge. They always get their revenge. When the Arabs, well, the Muslims, let's say, became a majority in Lebanon from the 1960s onward, there was no media pushing anti-whiteness there. But they got their revenge. Did they not? They always do. You do not want to be a member of a majority that becomes a minority. Okay, Brandon Smith says, the plan is truly too diabolical to be able to convince the layman that it's actually true. Oh, I don't really know that it's all that diabolical, especially when, well, going back to Bill Clinton, for instance, he was lauding the Great Replacement when he was president of the United States, that apparently white America, or majority white America, was a bad thing because immigrants are better than us. I think this is a very powerful argument. Oh, we need all these people. Why? Because Americans aren't good enough? Because Canadians aren't good enough? We need to be replaced? William Hicks says, read New York Times article where the authors used expressions verbal assault and rhetorical attack to describe questioning or challenging of election results in Michigan and elsewhere. I think a pretty good response to that is simply say, so you think that cheating is justified on racial grounds? Is that what you're saying? That if the cheating benefits the Democratic Party, then it's a good thing. If the cheating Democrat benefited the Republican Party, then it obviously would be a bad thing because evil white people presumably would benefit. Although what we've seen from the Democrats at the state, or sorry, the Republicans at the state level in Georgia, Michigan, and elsewhere, Pennsylvania, has been absolutely deplorable. These people seem to be offering their throats to be slit. Just pay me for another 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, and then maybe I can get a PR job somewhere, and then you can slit my throat. Okay, let's see. Trigger words to slap you with your own emotions, says Brandon Smith. NLP trickery. Okay, Chogokin66, Amber Man sad. Cool, Mike. Yeah, it's served me well for what, about 5 years now. Let's see, William Hicks again. New York Times writers Kathleen Gray, Jim Rutenberg, and Nick Corasanti were the authors of Michigan Republicans Backtrack After Refusing to Certify Election Results, a sublime piece. I guess it was. Media Hit says, reminds me of a few summer nights ago taking shelter from the rain under the shelter in front of a strip club, and these Arabs walked out with one making crude comments about black strippers. What white people in North America really don't seem to understand is that the only people in the world that believe in let's say a disinterested approach to race and ethnicity are white people. And some white people more than others. They're the only people in the world who look at the world this way. Lee Kuan Yew, who is the founder of Singapore, ran it for many years. He had no illusions about this. In a multicultural society, people vote on based on their race, and that's the way they do it. around the world, and this is coming to North America. But of course, it has been that way, say, in the Cotton South for decades. That's how Republicans took control of the Cotton South, because the polarization of the white vote. The black vote had always been polarized, but then the white vote became polarized. The greatest number of black people in the United States live in the Cotton South, but the Republicans have had a solid hold on it for decades. But of course, the Republicans are stupid as well as evil in terms of them double-crossing their supporters. No, let's bring in all these people from the third world. They're natural entrepreneurs. They're not going to form, an alliance with the blacks to push us out of power forever. Chocokin 666 says, the constant smell of cannabis wafting into my apartment since the Section 8 tenants moved in. Professor Pohl, hello, Professor Pohl. We have no Lee Kuan Yew in the U.S., though. Well, eventually the United States will get a Lee Kuan Yew. The question is, how much damage will be done before that happens? Anrun says, did you get the Shining Band yet? The Shining Band? I don't know whether that's a reference to. I did get the Light Ring, which is currently operating. But amusingly, because the stand for it is, 6 feet away or 6 feet away, I'll have to get up to adjust the strength. Yes, the United States is going to get a Lee Kuan Yew. All these Western countries will get Lee Kuan Yews. Metal Mike says, in urban areas in Canada, people have always voted based on their ethnicity, and now it's race and ethnicity. Well, in the province of Ontario, where I believe Metal Mike is located, the Italians used to pretty much run the Liberal Party in Greater Toronto. They have been pushed out in terms of numbers since the 1970s by immigrants. And there's Italian power in Ontario was huge. And now it's kind of an afterthought. But the Italians voted for candidates who were in favor of more and more and more and more immigration. Hikma Warrior says, I got on the bus today and some deranged person was yelling into the phone about someone staring at her. I got off before the bus took off again. Yeah, every time I hear about my country and the number of hate incidents that have been officially recorded, how could you possibly record that? Hate incident. Hate is it's a feeling, really. Sometimes it's expressed in action, but it's mostly a feeling. And you know what counts as a hate incident, a hate crime in my country? Dirty looks. Dirty looks. Now, without some sort of interrogation or perhaps a lie detector machine or sodium pentothal, it'd be very difficult to discern in most cases whether this so-called dirty look was the result of the presence of a minority of some sort, or all manner of other reasons, or perhaps the person was looking at someone else or staring at the floor. There's another problem because, of course, these newcomers to our country, they don't really understand our social conventions very well. And media hits, oh yeah, when one of them talks loud in public and you turn your head to see where the noise is coming from, and if you accidentally make eye contact for a second, they will freak out. Yeah. To give you an example, it's in, let's say, the Lower Mainland, Greater Vancouver. It happens all the time where you have a bunch of Chinese people in a restaurant and they're shouting into their smartphones, or they are speaking exceedingly loudly such that the other diners are not allowed to commune in pleasancy. In the past, Canadians would have got up and told them to keep it down, but now they're loath to do so because the automatic response is that is racist. Oh, here's an explanation, Fernand. Wasn't it you who got the shining watch band at Etsy? No, I don't wear a watch, actually. Oh, Thanksgiving. Walrus Libertarian mentions Thanksgiving. I'll have something to say about Thanksgiving shortly. Oh, yes, and here it is. I had not heard of Marcella Arguello until today. Let's go to Wikipedia. She was born circa 1985. Her medium is stand-up sketch comedy in the genres race, gender, sounds like a barrel of laughs, doesn't it? Relationships, family, work, popular culture. She grew up in Modesto, California, where she was active in school theater. Her parents emigrated to the United States from El Salvador during the Salvadoran Civil War. This is another argument about invading the world because the rest of the world comes to you. My country, Canada, had a very short military involvement in Somalia, with the result now that we have a great many Somalians in our city or in our cities. And for, 10, 15 years, we've had Somali gang problems, which I'm informed. The media tells me that this is the fault of the government because there aren't enough of them programs for the Somalians. But El Salvador, before, during, and after the Civil War, is a terrible place. And this Marcelo Arguello is in the United States now, but she doesn't seem to be happy. Her subjects include race, gender. Yeah, we heard that already. At 6 feet 2 inches tall, she also jokes about her height. I love being a very tall woman until someone calls me sir real loud in public. She is also known for her signature shock of curly hair. She is an exceedingly ugly woman. There is no other way to put it. So this is what she tweeted on November the 14th. Why are white people even traveling for Thanksgiving? Imagine risking your life for some dry ass turkey. This use of the word ass, something, ass, something. It's how black people talk. This woman is from El Salvador. Does she consider herself to be non-white? Apparently so, because that is the strong horse as opposed to the weak horse of whiteness. But let's bring in all these people who are going to mock our holidays, our traditions. But it seems that increasingly being a minority is simply not enough. This is from Yahoo Life, which, as I mentioned yesterday, this is just a gold mine of pause and consuming. I guess this is originally from Elle magazine because, fashion's boring. Women don't like fashion anymore. All they care about is politics and intersectionality. Maury Turner on making history as Oklahoma's first Muslim lawmaker. In an exclusive new interview, Maury Turner, a 27-year-old criminal justice advocate, takes Elle.com inside their campaign. Yeah, that's right. To become the first non-binary state legislator and the first practicing Muslim elected to the Oklahoma state legislature. And guess what? She's got a ring through her septum, and she is wearing a Muslim head garment because intersectionality. Don't you just love it? More, please. She says, Oklahoma has one of the highest rates of incarceration in the world, and a good portion of the state's residents are affected by the criminal legal system. I was one of them. My dad was in and out of prison for minor property offenses until I was 13 years old. I'd like more details as to what she believes minor property offenses to be. So I saw firsthand the many barriers he navigated while the government bolstered a narrative that he didn't deserve a second chance in life. I don't think we're talking about second chances, are we? He was in and out of prison for minor property offenses. It sounds like we're talking about a third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth chance. In some cases, she continues, it can be near impossible for the formerly incarcerated to pick back up the pieces and start over, which also makes it hard to reconnect with family and find employment. I never thought I'd run for political office. I don't know whether I believe you. I'm much more of a community organizer. You know what a community organizer is? A community organizer is a rent seeker who gets paid, typically by government, sometimes by big business, to stir up trouble. And in many cases, to create more clients for the state. Growing up with an incarcerated parent opened me up to the fact that in Oklahoma, vulnerable populations often get middle-of-the-road solutions. What? I knew if I wanted to change that, I had to do it myself. Even though my baba, which is Arabic for father, was incarcerated for a large part of my childhood, it always felt like he was around. I grew up in Ardmore, a small town in Oklahoma near the Texas border. My mom did her best to make sure my siblings and I were in contact with him, taking us to see him at the minimum security facility where he served time. It took my baba 10 years to land a stable job because of the stigma, in part, that he was inherently a bad person for going to prison. Yeah, that's how most people look at it. That he chose a life of crime over family and community. Yeah, is that an unreasonable assumption? I always thought I wanted to be a veterinarian, but the more I learned about my father's experience, the more passionate I became about criminal justice reform. While interning for the Oklahoma chapter of the, wait for it, Council on American Islamic Relations during my junior year of college, I found my true calling, community organizing. Council on American Islamic Relations. And they're all about people getting along with each other, with Muslims getting along with everyone else. Yeah. But again, not enough to be black and Muslim. Got to be something else. And in this case, non-binary. Okay. Oh, yeah. I guess I'm going to have to talk about this woman. And her name is Selena Cesar Chavez. I had some back and forth on Twitter with this woman a few years ago, back when you could do that sort of thing without getting suspended or banned. Oh, is Twitter not going to tell us anymore where she comes from? Seriously? Okay. I guess you got to screenshot this stuff now. Born 1974, she was a Canadian politician who served as an MP for the riding of Whitby in the House of Commons from 2015 to 2019. Elected as a Liberal in the 2015 federal election, she later sat as an independent member. Okay, she is not born in Canada. She did not grow up in Canada. She comes from Belize or someplace like that. Oh, yes. Cesar Chavez has repeatedly spoke out her experience of anti-black racist microaggressions on Parliament Hill. That has characterized her time as a member of Parliament, including being denied entry into her office building by security. She's been criticized by Maxime Bernier for focusing on the color of her skin as opposed to the issues facing her constituents. Here's a story from 2018. Then conservative MP Maxime Bernier, he's no longer a conservative MP. He's no longer an MP of any kind. He founded his own party, the People's Party, after he narrowly lost the leadership of the Conservative Party a couple of years ago. And he ran on a very interesting program, sort of a libertarian slash nativist, I suppose you could say. He didn't win any seats. So in any event, Maxime Bernier reproached a black MP for being too focused on the color of her skin. He was responding to a Globe and Mail interview with César Chavins that focused on her willingness to speak out about race and privilege, her willingness to speak out about race and privilege. And because minorities in my country, they never do that. They're too frightened. They're frightened of, I don't know, social death, gulag, perhaps. Let's see. He had tweeted, MP Selena focuses less on policy and more on personal matters. That's the main difference between us. You think the world revolves around your skin color. My goal is to bring better policies to all Canadians. That's an MP's job. And by the way, I'm not your sweetheart. She responded with a tweet of her own in which she said that unlike Bernier, she can raise awareness while dealing with policy. What is that? She can raise awareness while dealing with policy. Who wrote this story? Oh, Staff, Canadian Press. Generally dealing with policy is an attempt to raise an awareness about something or other. I can focus on policy while also shifting the status quo and increasing awareness. That's what happens when you hashtag add women. We get more done. Yeah. César Chavins apologized to Bernier in March after telling him to check his privilege and shut up during a heated social media exchange over funding for social groups. Yeah, check your privilege. Yeah, I would say that someone who was an immigrant to my country from a terrible place, which has nothing in common with us, they should learn to, check their privilege. I think they should learn to, not to put too fine a point on it, shut the hell up. They know nothing about our countries. They care nothing about our countries. Now, when I got into it on Twitter several years ago with this woman, I just did some research on the internet and I found out some very interesting things about her. This is a story from iPolitics from June of 2017. Selena César Chavins, her battle with depression. Oh, here we go. There would have been too much of a stigma to bear. Oh, really? Because we just keep being lectured. Stigma's bad. All kinds of stigmas are bad. No, they're not. Stigmas are exceedingly useful. And stigmas, that is to say, social pressures. In the absence of social pressures, we'll only have formal legal pressures. And so getting rid of stigma, getting rid of social sanctions is a disastrous idea. And no shortage of questions about their fitness to hold office. And yet, people in politics, who are people after all, yes, a woman wrote this called Holly Lake, face the same health crises as the average non-politician. Many successful leaders have struggled with mental illness, from Abraham Lincoln to Winston Churchill. And as time wears on, the assumption that admitting to mental illness is more than enough to kill a political career is being abandoned, one story at a time. Liberal MP Selena César Chavins says there's a power in telling such personal stories in public life. She penned a blog post last fall about her struggle with depression. For yourself, you release the burden of having to hide or be overwhelmed or be afraid to cry in public or to express your feelings. That takes that away because people understand and know this is what you're going through. She was first diagnosed in mid-2015. Okay, mid-2015. The election was in October. So that is to say, she ran to become a member of parliament when she was suffering from depression. Did she tell her constituents this? No, she did not. But in any event, in the early months of 2016, her condition had taken hold in a different form. By then, she was an MP in the new Trudeau government and a parliamentary secretary and found the illness overwhelming. Well, I guess she should have quit being a parliamentary secretary. But that gives you a big pay boost, and perhaps quit being an MP. If you can't do the job, then you shouldn't hold it. So overwhelming, in fact, that one day in late February, I abruptly left a meeting I was having with my caucus colleagues, had a brief stay in an Ottawa emergency room, then left on a train en route to Whitby. I was spiraling out of control, and I did not know what to do. I sat on the train thinking, will anybody help me? Does anybody see how much pain I am in? By the time I got home, I felt at a total loss, like my life was slipping away, unquote. Depression made her a prisoner, unwilling to leave the house or even wash her hair. Did she inform the caucus of this? Did she inform her minister of this? Because I'm going to suggest, once again, that anyone who's unwilling to leave the house or even wash her hair is not fit to be a parliamentary secretary, not fit to be an MP. With time, treatment, and self-care, she won her life back. Still, it can be a steady struggle to keep depression on its place. Cesar Chavin says some days are better than others. Quote, if you talked to me a couple of hours ago, I was a mess. Now I'm a little better, but it's day by day. This is a great day. It really is a day-by-day experience. You take the good with the bad. You take what you get and try to muster through. The more stressors there are in a day, they'll build up to a point where I know it's going to throw me off, so I can't. I try to eliminate those stressors earlier so they don't build up. It's absolutely appalling that women like this, and it's not only women, think that they're confessing, public confession of their inability to fulfill their responsibilities makes them a better person. Well, certainly a better person than you, the normies. So why have I taken so long carrying on about this woman? Well, she is hot today, and I'm going to adjust here. Just hang on a second here. Let's see what we got. That is worse, obviously. And I think that is it the highest? Just a second here. Okay, I'm back. I guess that's better, but I think there's going to have to be more adjustments. Okay, but this woman is in the news. And people who should know better, that is to say people on the right in Canada, or at least those who are anti-Trudeau, have decided they think this woman is just outstanding. And you're making a mistake, okay? This is from the National Post, John Ivison. The Liberal MP Justin Trudeau couldn't control. Memoir reveals final angry call with PM. Cesar Chavin was having a mad as hell and not going to take this anymore. Mad, not the best word to use, because as she has admitted, she is, or she suffers from madness on a regular basis, or at least she did at the time that Loving Profile was published. Who the fuck do you think you are speaking to? She howled and hung up. That is definitely how you get ahead in any political party, is to say to the leader of your party and the elected leader of your country, who the fuck do you think you are speaking to? But I guess that makes her a powerful woman. Even better, a powerful Black woman. Even better, a powerful Black immigrant woman. The Liberal filibuster of the Ethics Committee was a masterclass in droning inactivity on Monday. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, okay, padding. Get to it. The futility of debate. Oh, Walter Bagaho. Come on, get to the story. Okay. Selena Cesar Chavin's, one former parliamentarian, has laid out her short-lived life as an MP in a new memoir, Can You Hear Me Now? It is an account that does not reflect well on our current Prime Minister or on our parliamentary institutions. She was a young Black entrepreneur operating her own research company in Whitby, Ontario, when she decided to run for politics in her local riding. She was attracted by the liberal message on inclusion and diversity. So she first ran in a by-election in 2014 after the death of a local MP, Jim Flaherty, which she lost, and then again in 2015 when she triumphed. Justin Trudeau's office got an early taste of what it had taken on when she was overlooked for cabinet. Overlooked for cabinet. This is a first-time MP with no previous political experience, who is not from our country and apparently doesn't seem to know very much about it. Also, severe mental problems. Prime cabinet material. Trudeau had made it known that it would be a cabinet that looks a lot like Canada. César Chauvin said publicly it didn't look like the Canada she knew. The problem was, while a party said it valued her unique voice and perspective, it was not keen to promote views it could not control. Just like any other parliamentary party. Well, the Prime Minister hailed the diversity in his caucus, even naming César Chauvin as his parliamentary secretary. Again, I think that comes with a $40,000 a year boost in salary. She was not encouraged to speak on his behalf in the Commons or make appearances in his stead, unless it was the opening of the National Museum of African American History in Washington or the inauguration of the Republic of Ghana's new president. Well, apparently she got 2 free trips out of this. Trudeau said she didn't want her to be a token, yet it is clear this is exactly what he had in mind for her. She complained to senior staff that to be an effective parliamentary secretary, she needed to be on the same page as the Prime Minister and asked for a 15 meeting once a month, a request that was ignored. She was suspicious of his tendency to reward friends with ministerial positions, saying he was blinded by his own privilege. Says the woman who shows up from Shitholeville and demands the right to lecture Canadians about how awful they are and how our country must be turned upside down. Oh, here's an admission by John Ivison. By her own admission, César Chauvin was guilty of erratic behavior as she battled mental health challenges and attempted to adapt to a House of Commons she felt was designed to reinforce power and privilege. In some ways, these flaws were my superpowers, she said. Isn't that what Greta Thunberg says? She thought that she should instead use her platform to amplify the voices of quiet little black girls who felt and saw injustices but could not say anything because, as we all know, black girls, black women are shrinking violets. You would hardly ever notice that they were there. She said her feminism required her to be bold. It requires me to have uncomfortable conversations and to speak my truth. Yeah, not the truth, but my truth. Matters came to a head after an ugly online confrontation with People's Party leader Maxime Bernier. Some of César Chauvin's colleagues expressed support using a Here for Selena hashtag. Trudeau was noticeable by his absence until a hashtag started trending on Twitter. Oh, he met her for 3 minutes, which I felt was more of my time than he deserved. Yeah, okay. The more Justin spoke, the angrier I got. The manner in which he was speaking to me took me back to my childhood when my mother would correct me forcefully for behavior I didn't think was wrong. Yes, she was mad as hell and not going to take this anymore. Motherfucker, who the fuck do you think you're speaking to? This is the woman, a stupid race hustler who is, bonkers. And this is the woman who has been adopted by the anti-Trudeau right in this country. And looking at the search, the Liberal MP, Justin Trudeau. And here is some cuckery from leading Conservative MP Pierre Poilievre. With all the proof we've seen, can we finally accept that Trudeau's sanctimonious preaching about race and gender is nothing more than a hypocritical drama show? Yes, the Conservatives, we will suck up to minorities even more than the Liberals. Yeah, that's the country that I live in. If you think that Republican Party cucks are bad, You really ain't seen nothing. And she has, Selena has got rid of her old Twitter account, so I can't really bring back the very amusing conversations I had with her. In any event, Justin Trudeau has said there is no core identity, no mainstream in Canada. This means he intends to destroy Canada's identity to ensure there is no mainstream. Either Trudeau Scheer, that's the former Conservative leader, and that ilk is stopped now, or polygamy, female genital mutilation, and honor killings will become the new mainstream. What Canadian multiculturalism means in practice is that people called Arif Virani, Ikra Khalid, Deepak Oberoi, and Selena Cesar-Chavans, people with no roots in this country and no ancestral ties, get to define Canada, and people called Maxime Bernier are told to keep silent. As you probably know, I do not like Justin Trudeau. I despise him. But I will say, for all his sins, he is a Canadian. And clearly, Selena Cesar-Chavans is not. She simply isn't. I don't know, in an ideal world, legislation would be passed such that immigrants would not be allowed to run for a public office, certainly not national office, and perhaps the second generation after that as well. Oh, and while we're on the subject of we and they, I'd never heard of a Danish company called Maersk. I don't know how it's pronounced, okay? I learned that it is the leading shipping container company in the world and the leading shipping supplies company in the world. And they have a video out called Together All the Way, an anthem, okay? And it is just so hip-hoppy. Wow, it is incredibly hip-hoppy. And we zoom in slowly on a black woman with hair cut very short and dyed yellow. I won't call it blonde. And she has a message for us about globalism. You may have noticed that we all love to be together. Because when we live together, give together, when we trade, believe, and explore together, we all achieve so much more together. Because together, we've made economies grow, supply chains flow. Not just by plane, crane, train, ship, and road, but by data, blockchain, chip, and code, working with our customers across the globe, making trade more simple, digital, visible, trackable, traceable, flexible, end-to-endable, and dependable. And it goes on for another 3 minutes. Oh, because that's always been part of our DNA. This is the message. This is the message that we get from the globalists now. And I'll tell you what the message is. It's pretty disturbing. Maximal globalist efficiency requires the destruction of all nations, one world, one people, one consumer culture. Well, damn your Trotskyite nightmare, Maersk. In any event, we do not all love to be together. Multiculturalism is the war of all against all. Oh yes, I'm reminded that Mark Zuckerberg named his daughter Maxima. I've heard of product placement, but this is ridiculous. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about Trudeau because he has, as you may have heard, signed on to the Great Reset, which again, if you're in favor of it, it's wonderful. If you're against it, it's a conspiracy theory. It is misinformation, and you're probably white supremacist, Nazi, whatever. D.B. Cooper says that's true. The more together we are, the happier the country gets. It was miserable 60 years ago. Jim Bowden says, good evening, KMG. I've missed your stream for the past 2 days here in Australia. I went into an imminent depression for missing your informative show. Well, it's sad to hear. Keep up the good work, mate. Well, I thank you. I appreciate it. Thomas Henderson says, globalism turns everyone into economic units of equal worthlessness. Dorsey and Zeeberg do not look fully human, says Hikma Warrior. Zuckerberg needs to grow some hair. I don't know. Maybe get some sun or something, because he's increasingly looking like a replicant and not one of the advanced ones either. But no, you see, we had Marxism in the 20th century, and it was inevitable. It was scientific. It was ineluctable, and it collapsed. So what do we have now? We have globalism. And these people, the same people who call themselves Marxists or socialists, they didn't skip a beat. This is not my insight as Paul Gottfried's, that they moved immediately from their failed ideologies to multiculturalism, diversity, neoliberalism, globalism. And yeah, for 100 years, we were talking up a system which turned out to be a failure, and, well, a rather disastrous one. And, oh yeah, it led to the death of tens of millions of people. We've got this new thing now, so you should listen to us. And amazingly, what happened was, oh, tell us about your new thing, instead of go away. We're not interested in any new ideas from you. Dorsey, a hobo. Zuckerberg, a robot. Well, I like to prefer to think of Jack Dorsey as a Dostoevsky character after he grew that beard. Yo mama, KMG, did you ever feel like Charlton Heston in Planet of the Apes? Not really, because it's not like I went on a space voyage. It just, you see, for me at my age, it's especially appalling because people who were born later, well, particularly in my country, they think, oh yes, this much has changed while I've been alive. But the Canada that I grew up in, it might as well be, the 19th century, the 18th century. That's how far away it is now. Okay, yeah. Wandering Spurk says black people invented blockchain and peanut butter. I remember, 30 years ago, maybe 40 years ago, on Saturday Night Live, they had Garrett Morris making fun of George Washington Carver at great length. Just all of the things you could do with the peanut. So the basis of the joke is that, inventing peanut butter is not particularly high up on the list of human accomplishments. I mean, it wasn't done savagely, but of course, that sort of joke would be unthinkable now. Absolutely unthinkable. Yo Mama says, worst rap ever. Well, you can watch the video. It's very professionally done. And of course, they have the guest stars in, these different people rapping. Okay. Oh, they make most of their money. That would be Maersk, working for Muslim oil countries. Hikma Warrior says, in the old country, we had houses of prostitution. In America, we have a prostitute in every house. Okay. So, yes, the 25th Amendment. You remember when Robert Reich was speaking a few days ago about it was a necessity to remove the president of the United States from the White House before January the 20th? Well, you might think that Robert Reich was, I don't know, an outlier. Apparently not, because 25th Amendment, or 25th Amendment before we all die, has been trending today. and got to get Trump out of there. Trump dump 2, Project Link. Oh, traitor in chief. Michael Rappaport. Speaking of fake black people, tough guy Ted Cruz. Michael Rappaport is in no state to accuse other people of being fake tough guys. Tough guy Ted Cruz talks tough to Jack over Zoom, but curled like a coward when pig dick Donald Trump went hard in the paint against you. Your wife and your father's legacy linked with JFK. You're not Texas strong. You're just Texas wrong, slime bag. I am Rappaport stays disruptive. Ooh, we all admire your courage because there have been so very few in the entertainment community who have dared to take a stand against Donald Trump. Dared to take a stand. So bless you, Michael Rappaport. Yes, it's just thousands of these tweets. 25th Amendment, what are you waiting for? Oh no, there's been some changes in foreign policy. And it goes on and on and on. And we're now at the point where we have people talking about dragging the president of the United States out of the White House physically because they disagree with his policies, or even more hilarious, because he doesn't want to kill enough people. Donald Trump, he's decided that he doesn't have to kill foreigners the way that, American presidents have been doing for decades. I mean, we can't have that, can we? I mean, that's just, yeah. Bill Kristol tweeted yesterday, from the Wayne County Board of Canvassers to the firing of Chris Krebs to the Department of Defense announcement about drawing down troops, I'm going to say it. And then in all caps, I am alarmed. Yes. I responded, Joe Biden must be recognized as president-elect by all as quickly as possible. The deaths of many thousands of innocent men, women, and children in North Africa, the Middle East, and Central Asia depend on it. Won't you please help? This has been a message from the neoconservatives. America's not killing enough people. And here's why that's a problem. So what is the latest hysteria from Matt Drudge? Wow, this site has gotten really lazy. Kamala returns to Capitol as VP-elect. That was the same picture at the top yesterday. New York City schools to shut now. Who saw that one coming, huh? Cuomo warns of astronomical increases. I don't think he knows what the word astronomical means, but okay, there's not very, I guess Drudge has done his part as he sees it in electing Joe Biden, so he doesn't really put in much work. This is from Joe Hoft at Gateway Pundit. Sidney Powell went on Newsmax Tuesday night and discussed the efforts of the Trump team to stop the attempted steal of the U.S. election by the Biden campaign. The great attorney of General Michael Flynn and now President Trump, Sidney Powell, was on Greg Kelly on Newsmax last night, and she discussed the colossal corruption that was used in the 2020 election to steal the election for Biden. She said, and the will of the people in this country was that Donald Trump win in a landslide. If we can get to the bottom of it, I'm determined to do that. I think we'll find he had at least 80 million votes. The only reason the glitches happened in the system is because he had so far many more votes than they had calculated in advance. Their algorithms wouldn't perform the functions they had originally were set to perform. They couldn't make up the vote count. He had gotten so many hundreds of thousands more than they planned. So that's when they had to stop the counting and come up with a way to backfill votes or destroy votes for Trump while they fabricated votes for Biden. Sidney Powell confirmed what we have been reporting, that large dumps of hundreds of thousands of votes were recorded early in the morning after the election in Virginia, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Michigan, After these dumps were recorded in all of these states, nearly every entry of new votes came in at an exact percentage, hundreds of entries with Biden leading Trump by the same percent, i.e. 51 to 49. Again, we found that after Biden was finally given the lead, almost every single entry after that was at the same ratio of Biden to Trump votes in Virginia, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Michigan. The Biden election steal is the boldest and most corrupt action in U.S. history. This even far exceeds the Russia collusion scam. When I start hearing about voting machines with algorithms, I think people on the other side are going to notice this. Why would a voting machine need an algorithm? Why would a voting machine be weighting votes? There's no possible reason for either of these things other than fraud. There's no possible reason. Bruce Bauer has a piece in American Greatness yesterday. Last weekend, it was the American people's turn to announce they were nobody's fools. On Saturday and then again on Sunday, ordinary citizens from all over the United States gathered in Washington, D.C. to demonstrate in both senses of the word. They demonstrated against the Democrats' theft of the presidential election from Donald Trump, and they demonstrated that tens of millions of Americans know very well that the election was stolen. Ice road truckers in Alaska know it was stolen. Pineapple farmers on Molokai know it was stolen. I wouldn't be surprised if I were backpacking in Papua New Guinea or rafting up the Amazon or climbing some Himalayan mountain in Nepal to encounter a remote tribe whose first question would be, how are the recounts going? The triumph here is that the news about the election theft has been disseminated in spite of the best efforts of the Democratic Party and the mainstream media to quash it. Of course, the treason of the Democrats and the staggering perfidy of the press have been twin hallmarks of the Trump era. Still nothing, not even the media-abetted bid by Barack Obama and company to bring down Trump's presidency, could quite have prepared us for this historically brazen attempt to steal it and then lie about it. Not only are the media lying about the steal, they're smearing the people who are doing the job they should be doing. They're casting Rudy Giuliani, who accomplished more real positive change in the lives of more American citizens than perhaps any politician in my lifetime, as some kind of nut. They'd have you believe that Victor Davis Hanson, a classicist of incomparable learning, wisdom, and accomplishment, is some kind of clown. Meanwhile, they expect us to take seriously the pontifications of idiots whose only achievements are collecting paychecks from AT&T, owner of CNN, or Comcast, owner of NBC, to stare into a camera and pretend to be knowledgeable. Idiots like the absurd Wolf Blitzer, who proved on Celebrity Jeopardy in 2009 that not only is he a colossal ignoramus, he's too stupid and egomaniacal to realize he's a colossal ignoramus. By the way, that's called Dunning-Kruger syndrome. You look it up if you've never heard of it. It reveals an enormous amount about human life. Dunning-Kruger. Idiots like Don Lemon and Chris Cuomo, a pair of preening buffoons, each stupider than the other, who, if they were serving up their inanities next to you at a neighborhood bar instead of a TV screen, would make you decide immediately to settle up and call it a night. Idiots like the repulsively self-important Christiane Amanpour, whose moral compass is so utterly broken that the other day she compared Trump's presidential tenure to Kristallnacht. And then there's Anderson Cooper, who I've never been able to figure out. Some CNN hacks doubtless worry that they'd end up sleeping under a bridge if they decline to be Jeff Zucker's lapdogs. But why does a Vanderbilt heir want that job? One of the stunning revelations of this ever-growing scandal is that there are many more top-ranked politicians and journalists than one ever realized who totally lack a conscience and whose cravings for power and fame plainly outweigh their need for self-respect. It's depressing to realize that so many of the supposed creme de la creme in America are so vomitously unprincipled, but I suppose it's better to know the truth than to live with an illusion. Bauer makes a very good point that if the MSN had their way, there would be no discussion whatsoever of the recount or of the continued claim by President Trump and many others that the election was stolen. because this would be suppressed. Trump would be kicked off Twitter. And if he went to Parler or whatever, Parler would be shut down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So for the time being, a resistance is still possible, but I will repeat my prediction that if Biden manages to cheat his way into the White House on January 20th, make no mistake, the policy of the new administration and of their allies in the media, academia, elsewhere, will be shoot the wounded. From Jim Hoft at Gateway Pundit, more proof of fraud. 16 of 17 bellwether counties went for Trump. Has never happened in 36 years. Cultural Husbandry posted this amazing graphic on Wednesday from his tweet. From 1984 through 2016, spanning presidential elections, 17 U.S. counties in several states voted for the winning presidential candidate in an astounding 148 of 153 times, including 100% 5 times for 5 different presidents: Reagan in 84, Clinton in 96, Bush in 2000, Obama in 2012, and Trump in 2016. In 2020, amid widespread accusations of Democrat cheating, these bellwethers were not even close, checking in at a mind-blowing 6%. Only 1 of 17 bellwether counties went for Biden this year. Again, I was talking to someone the other day, and I gave this analogy that you go to the grocery store, and sometimes you get too much change. You get an extra $5 or $10, say. Sometimes you don't get enough change, an extra $5 or $10. So usually, less than that. In the same way that sometimes you take your groceries to checkout, and sometimes you get charged for something that you didn't buy, or you get charged the wrong price too high. Alternatively, sometimes you don't get charged for things that you have got, or you get charged too less. My point is, it tends to even out. When you have a situation where you have these anomalies, outliers, again and again and again and again, without exception, and they all break for one candidate, there can only be one reasonable conclusion, which is fraud. There's no other way to consider this, because we've gone well past questions of probability here. Probability is no longer on the cards, but once again, there's a difference between common sense proof and legal proof. Andrea Widberg writes in The American Thinker, the Michigan GOP is behaving strangely and badly. For a while there, it looked as if the elections board in Wayne County, Michigan, which is home to Detroit, would refuse to certify its election result based on evidence of fraud. 2 Republican board members, however, abruptly collapsed, and the county certified the votes. Then, in another strange step down, the state Senate's majority leader, a Republican, announced that his team was all in for Biden. What the heck is going on? She asks. Now, we know why the 2 certifiers, why they cucked, because they were threatened, and their children, or at least the woman's children, were threatened. Oh, let's see. Wayne County Board of Canvasser Democrat Ned Stabler admits that only 72% of ballots are recountable, but said voters need to be certified because it was worse during the primary. He then intimidates GOPers Hartman and Monica Palmer into submission by calling them racists. The state Senate Majority Leader, Mike Schricky, a Republican, came down strongly on the side of Joe Biden. Is it paranoid and unrealistic of me to think that this is not a principled stand, but instead reflects either the result of either threats or promises? Alternatively, it is a reminder that the Republican Party doesn't like Trump any more than the Democrat Party did. I don't think that last accusation is true, really, but there are people who are obviously looking to be rewarded. This from Summit News, Paul Joseph Watson, and it has to do with the same fellow that I was just talking about. Republicans in Wayne County, Michigan reversed their decision to not certify the presidential election after they were lectured by a pro-Antifa poll watcher. Monica Palmer and William Hartman, who make up two of the four-person Wayne County Board of Canvassers, sparked controversy when they initially refused to sign off on their district's ballot count, which handed Joe Biden victory. This prompted poll watcher and local businessman Ned Stabler to accuse the pair of basically being on a par with Nazis. Quote, "I just want to let you know that the Trump stink, the stain of racism that you have covered yourself in, is going to follow you throughout history," unquote, Stabler said in a Zoom call. "You will forever be known in southeastern Michigan as two racists who did something so unprecedented that they disenfranchised hundreds of thousands of black voters in the city of Detroit because they were ordered to," before going on to label Palmer and Hartman completely racist. He suggested the pair were also going to hell, declaring, "When you go to meet your maker, your soul is going to be very, very warm." I wonder if this Stabler fellow is actually a religious man, because I noticed that when it comes to politics, most of these people who deal in this kind of fire and brimstone religious imagery from the left are not, in fact, believers. And in fact, many of them are outright atheists who the rest of the time mock religion and mock believers. I suppose the question is what to do. And I'm reluctantly coming around to the position that is unsavory as it might seem, that the only way that we're going to win or even have a chance of winning is to do as they do. When they're beaten, when they are decisively beaten, I guess then we could go back to politesse. But if your enemy's position is we will break the rules, there are no rules except we win, and don't expect any mercy when we win, you are going to the wall, then obviously politesse is not the position to take. From Kyle Olson at Breitbart, the Democrats unhappy with two Republican members on the Wayne County Board of Canvassers launched withering personal attacks during Tuesday night's meeting after the pair initially declined to certify the November 3rd election results. Pastor Edward Pruitt claimed Hartman's racist ignorance was showing because he allegedly picked speakers based on his ability to pronounce their names. "Your children will be disgusted, and I'm sad that you have influence over them," he said. Meanwhile, a woman called Trishy, or Trish, it's spelled in a very strange way, Duckworth, struck a similar tone, singling out Monica Palmer. "Your racism is very apparent, and I don't know how you sleep at night. And because this is on the record, Monica, your daughter is going to look at you in disgust because she's going to know, and this is going to affect her because people will ask her, why is your mother a racist?" Brienda Bradley berated the duo with a similar message. "If your descendants see this, and I hope they are nothing like you, I pray to God they are nothing like you." She added she hopes Palmer feels the barrage for the rest of her life. Another speaker named Eliza Bielby also went after them personally. "We need to be thinking rationally. The display of racism makes me so ashamed. It makes me ashamed. I'm sorry for your descendants." Descendants, that word again. Was a memo sent out? Your descendants who will be so ashamed of you. I'm ashamed of you, and I'm not even related to you. Judy Neal claimed Hartman called on people with white-sounding names, assuming they will support your actions. Ashley Daniels attacked Hartman over his difficulty pronouncing some names. "You, Hartman, are unethical because you have woman issues, because you have been silencing women." I have been silenced 3 times. First, being born as a black woman. Once again, black women are famously shrinking violets. In fact, if it wasn't for the news media, you would know that black women existed. They are modest to a fault, subservient in all things, and they would never, ever, ever make a scene. So she's been silenced 3 times. First, being born a black woman. Secondly, my vote that you guys did not just certify has been silenced. And thirdly, I've been silenced by you, Hartman. We are going to come for all you heads. That sounds like a threat to me. Perhaps the sort of thing that the Department of Justice might be interested in. But I don't know if you know what happened in Georgia, that the woman, the Democratic candidate, Stacey Abrams, you're supposed to lose, with grace. She insisted for months, for years, that she was actually the real governor of Georgia. And she launched a get out the vote effort and carrying on about voter suppression, which of course is nonsense. But the state government of Georgia signed a consent decree with her, basically allowing Stacey Abrams to determine which votes would count, specifically all the illegal ones. She ran for governor and she lost, and I would have to think that her constantly carrying on about how she's the real winner annoyed a great many people. Also, she's a gap-toothed, morbidly obese, angry black lesbian. But I suppose those are all good things. Of course, they're all good things. Nick Chase writes in American Thinker, last Sunday in my article, Lost Votes or Fraud Votes, I looked at the lost votes for the 2020 presidential election listed in internet bloggers' PEDS analysis, and I described how, after adjusting for the throwaway votes, Trump won Pennsylvania and will win after the recount Georgia, while Biden likely won Nevada, Michigan, Wisconsin, and possibly Arizona. But there's still something missing. PEDS, a data search, exposed votes switched from Trump to Biden and votes lost, mostly Trump votes thrown away. But there is a third category that escapes this type of data scanning, votes added. By votes added, I mean fraudulent votes that were all or almost all for Biden. This would include and account for the massive Biden vote dumps that occurred in Wisconsin and Michigan in the early morning hours of November the 4th, which shrank Trump's lead by 1.5% to 2% of those states and eventually resulted in Biden wins. And every conceivable way of cheating has been used here. Let's see. Yes, here's the translation and explanation. At 5:32 a.m. CST on November 4th, total votes were 4,574,555. Trump had 2,346,747, 51.3%. Biden, 2,150,041 votes, 47%. Then still, at 5:32 a.m. CST, only 5 seconds later than the previous reading, total votes were Trump at 2,352,715, 49.8%. Biden, 2,291,299, 48.5%. In that brief 5-second period, Trump's vote total increased by just under 6,000 votes, while Biden's vote total increased by over 141,000 votes. Folks, that is a clear fraudulent electronic ballot dump for Biden. I calculate that this fraud created about 136,000 fake votes for Basement Joe. And, well, they keep adding more and more votes. Lynn Wood, who is a lawyer who represented Covington Catholic boys and got settlements from CNN and the Washington Post, is working with President Trump. This is from the National File. Tom Pappert, he was on Mark Levin's show on Tuesday. He explained that he filed a lawsuit as a voter in Georgia that declares the state's actions to move to a looser mail-in vote system illegal. My lawsuit is based on a consent agreement reached in March of 2020 by the Secretary of State with the Democratic Party in a lawsuit represented by Perkins Coie, otherwise known as the Hillary Clinton firm. Perkins Coie, that was what's the name of that bogus company, the blood testing company Elizabeth Holmes co-founded? She hired that company basically to put the fear of God into everyone raising questions about their fraud. Yeah, their fraud. The election on November 3rd was unlawful, Wood said. He went on to explain that he filed the lawsuit last week and has amended it to contain additional claims of due process violations that relate to the sham recount that's underway in Georgia right now. He also said he's next taking action for an emergency hearing to stop this recount and not certify the votes because they are recounting the illegal votes. At that point, Wood turned his focus on the elected representatives of Georgia, including the Secretary of State and Governor Brian Kemp, who have both dismissed claims that systematic fraud would lead to different results following the Georgia recount. The Secretary of State of Georgia is a liar, Wood said. I don't make those types of accusations lightly, but I will tell you that our Secretary of State and our Governor Brian Kemp are dirty. They are corrupted by Chinese money. First, we've got to have a special session of the Georgia legislature called so that they can elect the electors to vote for Donald Trump, who, by the way, won a landslide victory in Georgia, as he did across the nation. The computer voting system in Georgia, Dominion, contains software that was manipulated where they control the voting. The election was a fraud. Donald Trump won, I believe, clearly 70% landslide election in the nation. He's talking about electoral votes. He probably won over 400 electoral votes. From John Daniel Davidson at The Federalist, it should surprise no one that Nevada has problems with election security and voter fraud, especially after the state mailed an absentee ballot to every registered voter this year, whether he requested one or not, then received back more than 8 times as many mail-in ballots as they did in 2016. That's part of the reason Republicans in Nevada filed another lawsuit on Tuesday. The mass mailing of unsolicited ballots is, of course, a recipe for fraud. Even more so in a state where the voter rolls contain tens of thousands of people who haven't voted or updated their records in more than a decade. But there's another less sensational but perhaps more consequential election scandal in Nevada, which has been hiding in plain sight for weeks now. Under the guise of supposedly nonprofit, nonpartisan Get Out the Vote campaigns, Native American voter advocacy groups in Nevada handed out gift cards, electronics, clothing, and other items to voters in tribal areas, in many cases documenting the exchange of ballots for prizes on their own Facebook pages, sometimes even while wearing official Joe Biden campaign gear. Simply put, this is illegal. Offering voters anything of value in exchange for their vote is a violation of federal election law, and in some cases punishable by up to 2 years in prison and as much as $10,000 in fines. And the prizes included raffles, free food, free t-shirts, and so on. Let's see. Do I really want to talk more about specific examples of voting fraud? I could talk for hours about this, but I think you've got the gist. I'll just mention one more headline from Gateway Pundit. We caught them. Wisconsin, like Michigan, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Virginia, caught doing the drop and roll to once Biden gained lead with massive vote dumps, the rest of votes all possessed same Biden to Trump vote ratio. This is impossible. Lynn Wood on Howie Carr's show, Joe Biden and the people like him who have been trying to steal this election will all go to jail. Well, that's the dream, certainly. Let's do a little political wrap up here by looking at some Twitter feeds. Start with Scott Adams, see whether he has anything interesting to say. 4 hours ago, the only way you can believe the election was not rigged is by assuming very few Democrats actually believe any of the CNN or MSNBC framing of Trump as an existential threat. This is an excellent point. If Trump is literally Hitler, then of course he must be prevented from having a second term by any means necessary. And so you might think Well, stealing an election, but particularly in the outrageous way in which it was done. Oh, these people must have really thought twice about this. No, I don't think they thought twice about it as well, because again, we're talking about literally Hitler. Okay, so let's go to President-elect KG. Oh, I see we have some bants here. Okay, I think too many bants. Let's go to J5 Killer. He's referring to an article on by Alexander Macris, Trump at the Rubicon. If he cast the die, the Insurrection Act and Militia Act empower Trump to fight and win. The closing days of 50 BC, the Roman Senate declared that Julius Caesar's term as a provincial governor was finished. Roman law afforded its magistrates immunity to prosecution, but this immunity would end with Caesar's term. As leader of the Popularis faction, Caesar had many enemies amongst the elite optimates, and as soon as he left office, these enemies planned to bury him in litigation. Caesar knew he would lose everything: property, liberty, even his life. Caesar decided it was better to fight for victory than accept certain defeat. In January 49 BC, he crossed the Rubicon River with his army in violation of sacred Roman law and began a civil war. Alia acta est. Caesar said, the die is cast. In the closing days of 2020 AD, the American media has declared that Donald Trump's term as president is finished. As leader of the deplorables faction, Trump has many enemies amongst the elite errates, and as soon as he leaves office, these enemies plan to bury him in litigation. In his thirst for vengeance, Bill Pascrell, chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, has made it clear there will be no Nixonian escaped by pardon. Like Caesar, Trump must now fight for victory or lose everything. Come January 2021, will Donald Trump decide to cast the die and cross the Rubicon? He might. The same people who warned us that Trump is worse than Hitler will now scoff Donald Trump is no Caesar. That's true. Trump is in a much better position than Caesar was. Unlike Caesar, Trump can cross the Rubicon legally. He need not violate sacred law. He has all the legal power he needs to act and win. Congress has given it to him. All he needs to do is invoke the Insurrection Act. And he goes in considerable detail about the Insurrection Act, and he can call up the militia as well, organize the unorganized, and there's a discussion of the balance of forces there. And he ends up by saying, this is not a drill. This is where we are. If Trump is standing on the banks of the Rubicon, it's because the leftist machine has purposefully widened the Rubicon River until it reaches his feet. Clear-headed left-wingers, if there are any left, need to step in and de-escalate the threats against Trump and his supporters and listen to 70 million Americans clamoring for fair and fraud-free voting. There is still time. Otherwise, as another great military leader, Sun Tzu, put it, when on death ground, you must fight. Again, that was, this is Macris, macris.substack.com. Oh, yeah. I'm going to talk again about the Great Reset because, well, it's been trending. And it's fake, right? You know that it's fake. You know there's no such thing as the Great Reset. You know that it's a conspiracy theory, right? Because, I mean, come on, great, it's like the New World Order, and that wasn't real either. Actually, it was, and that didn't go down very well. The New World Order, and it seems to have. It should have collapsed in 2008, but it just keeps being resurrected with names like Agenda 21, or now it's the Agenda 2030. As James Delingpole says, it's not a conspiracy theory when they tell you exactly what they're doing. Klaus Schwab is founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, which meets at Davos in Switzerland yearly to give Angela Merkel, Justin Trudeau, Emmanuel Macron, and all the rest their marching orders. And here's a copy of a book, which you can get at Amazon Co. UK. And it's co-authored by Klaus Schwab. And he is the lead author, and it's called COVID-19, The Great Reset. Yeah. They're not hiding it. It's in plain view. And I'm looking at a picture of Boris Johnson looking rather nonplussed because his fiancée, Carrie Simons, she has a permatan, and I do not trust anyone with a permatan. And she is rabbiting on at him. James Delingpole wrote on Breitbart yesterday, the sale of new petrol and diesel cars will be banned in Britain from 2030 as part of the Great Reset promoted by Prime Minister Boris Johnson's current official girlfriend, Carrie Simons. This is part of a green revolution being pushed by the Conservatives, despite the fact that green issues are only of marginal issue to voters. They are of huge interest to unelected eco-activist and animal rights campaigners. Simon. Yeah, so the Conservatives have made a radical turn in Britain. And let's see what they had to announce, what I suppose would be yesterday now. Boris Johnson, my 10-point plan will drive forward a green industrial revolution, creating jobs across the country. Here's how we'll do it. Our 10-point plan to create 250,000 green jobs, offshore wind to power every home, supporting up to 60,000 jobs, develop the first town heated entirely by hydrogen. That does no way sounds dangerous. Advancing nuclear as a clean energy source. Well, if you're going to advance nuclear, why would you need hydrogen or wind power? Backing our car manufacturers to accelerate the transition to electric vehicles, i.e. banning gas and diesel power. Investing in public transport, cycling and walking. Investing in walking. Oh, there are no sidewalks in Britain. Supporting industries to become greener in zero-emission planes and ships. Making our homes, schools, and hospitals greener while creating 50,000 jobs by 2030, becoming a world leader in carbon capture tech. Yes, carbon, which we all know is man's eternal enemy. It needs to be captured and then buried in the ground where it can harm no one. Planting 30,000 hectares of trees every year to protect our environment. Oh, yeah. What about all the countryside, which Boris Johnson is laying waste to because he's doing nothing to lower immigration rates, doing nothing to stop illegal immigration, is inviting, 300,000 people from Hong Kong? So not very long from now, it's going to be like Anthony Burgess's novel, The Wanting Seed, which was written in 1961, which is set in the future, and where from London to Brighton, it's just one urban conurbation. And I suppose under the Conservatives, it won't be just London to Brighton. It'll be Brighton to London and then, say, Windsor or Reading. It'd just be paved over, all of it. So I had 4 questions for the Conservative Party. One, was the Great Reset included in your 2019 election manifesto? 2, if not, why not? Was Carrie Simons a Conservative candidate? And 4, wind power. Why do you hate birds? The apostles of wind power don't like to advertise the fact that these windmills are bird abattoirs. Let's see. Delingpole describes how Simons, aka Princess Nut, was the winner of a power struggle at the weekend, which saw Johnson's chief advisor Dominic Cummings booted out of his job. Princess Nut is believed to be behind the Johnson administration's decision to abandon those working class voters in the Midlands and the North who helped give the government its 80-seat majority and instead focus on the interests of the woke metropolitan elite. Yeah. Let anyone doubt the connection between Princess Nutnut's Green Revolution and the sinister sounding but very real Great Reset being pushed by the World Economic Forum. The links are made clear on the Conservatives' official Twitter feed. It says in its strapline, "Build Back Better," which is the campaign slogan of the Great Reset, the long-running scheme by Klaus Schwab, founder of the World Economic Forum, to steer the world's government towards a, quote, fourth industrial revolution, unquote, leading to the Great Reset. This ultimately will entail the abolition of private property, the rationing of scarce resources on grounds decided by an unelected technocratic elite, the replacement of cheap fossil fuel energy with expensive, environmentally destructive wind and solar energy. Though sometimes dismissed as a conspiracy theory, the World Economic Forum makes no secret of its plans to bring about a new world order as the result of the Great Reset. And it's another piece from Delling Poll. This time today, the Great Reset has been trending on Twitter. Once you're familiar with what it means for the future of our civilization, you'll understand why. And there's a tweet embedded here from Jonathan Witt, who said Justin Trudeau calling the coronavirus pandemic an opportunity for a reset as per the World Economic Forum, and parroting the Build Back Better line, which Biden just so happened to use as a campaign slogan, must be a coincidence and not at all coordinated. There's a petition online for Canadians to stop the Great Reset. There's a deeper meaning to the phrases that Trudeau uses: building back better, 2030 agenda, sustainable development, and the SDGs and reset are all buzzwords for the complete transformation of the global economy in order to create a new world order. How do they get away with this? Okay, so Donald Trump is a very bad man, is apparently personally responsible for the deaths of about 250,000 people. Oh, has it gone better in Britain? Has it gone better? In France, in Canada, everywhere, all of our leaders are in absolute panic about this. The elite, the people carrying on about climate change and the need for a Great Reset, have made they've knocked this into COVID-19 into a cocked hat. It's difficult to imagine how they could have handled this worse than they did. But no, they have even grander ideas. And in my own province of British Columbia, the Premier John Horgan says British Columbians can expect additional COVID-19 restrictions to be announced on Thursday. He wants Trudeau to implement a pan-Canadian approach to limit travel within the country. We need to make sure that those who want to come to British Columbia must do so only if it is essential for their business or their well-being. What I'm suggesting is the people of Quebec, Ontario, and Manitoba need to know that they should stay in Quebec, Ontario, and Manitoba until we get to a place where we can start distributing a vaccine across the country. According to Horgan, non-essential travel within BC will be prohibited for at least 2 weeks. But what else is coming? And I didn't see a mention of this in that story, but the media seems to be cheerleading for something else. Richard Zussman, who is a reporter at Global BC, at the BC legislature, he said, Horgan is asking that no non-essential travel happen to and from BC until after a vaccine comes. This is the strongest language yet on out-of-province visitors should not come here for Christmas. So Zussman seems to be very keen on the idea that, the Christmas, the kind where far-flung family members get together, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. They haven't got around to closing the churches yet, but I'm sure that's happening again. Oh, yes, and the United Kingdom is developing a code system to only allow vaccinated people into events. That's from Summit News. Joe Biden urges Americans to wear masks until inauguration. We can save 100,000 lives, he said. Okay, he made a prediction that there would be 400,000 It was another 400,000 deaths by the end of the year, or that an additional 200,000 Americans would die. That was during the second debate. Again, from Summit News, police use water cannons against anti-lockdown protesters in Berlin. Oh, you know what? And the Centers for Disease Control have stopped tracking influenza. That's just another one of those strange coincidences. Wouldn't you say? Because it is cold and flu season, respiratory illnesses. The latest from Toby Young at Lockdown Skeptics: no household mixing after lockdown ends. People from different households won't be allowed to mix in indoor spaces from December 3rd to 24th, at which point the rule will be relaxed for 5 days before being reimposed. According to some of today's papers, the government is trying to spin this as the only way to save Christmas. And the Sun has bought that line, but that does beg the question, why prioritize saving Christmas over saving jobs? Oh, how many times have we had this bait and switch all over the world? That, oh yeah, accept a little pain now for a big gain later. Well, you're not getting the gain. You need more pain. And it's only going to be for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Oh no, we have to do it again. We have to extend it, make it tougher. Again, I'm going to use this metaphor that our leaders, everyone except Trump, and I guess everyone except Sweden, has taken the position that, to quote an infamous Department of Defense flack during the Vietnam War, we had to destroy the village in order to save it. But of course, all of these people calling for more and stricter lockdowns, what do they have in common? They all still have jobs, don't they? And if they're civil servants who don't bother to go into office, or they're teachers who don't bother to, teach, they still get paid, don't they? I suppose that's the most binary division in terms of essential and non-essential. Essential people not only continue to get paid regardless of whether their jobs are in any way essential, or the fact that they're obviously worthless, because if you stop showing up for your job and no one notices, why do you have that job? But it seems like the essential workers not only keep getting paid while others aren't, or effectively put on the dole, they're the ones who get to make the decisions. It's said that man is wolf to man, but perhaps more to the point that woman is wolf to women. There is a long and hilarious profile at Vanity Fair by Lysandra Orstrom, and it's called Ivanka Trump Was My Best Friend. Now she's MAGA royalty. We met at an all-girls school on the Upper East Side and were inseparable for more than a decade. Gradually, though, our differences divided us. Why would you tell me to read a book about fucking poor people, she once asked. Okay, maybe she did. And I watched her blow up her carefully curated image of refined privilege to embrace her father wholesale. That's not what curated means, Lysandra Orstrom or Vanity Fair editors. Is this a new genre that I used to be friends with someone who was better looking and more famous and more successful than me, but now I have a chance to get revenge because this person holds political views of which I do not approve. Yes, some very amusing bits from this. By the time I did return home, she had started dating Jared Kushner, whose family was Orthodox Jewish, and my pro-Palestinian stance began to chafe. Since 2007, I've worn a necklace with my name written in Arabic, and Ivanka grew increasingly irritated by it. Sometimes she would randomly say, "I hate that thing." Then one night, in the middle of dinner, she glanced at the necklace and said, "How does your Jewish boyfriend feel when you are having sex and that necklace hits him in the face?" How can you wear that thing? It just screams terrorist. Yeah. If you look at this article, you will notice that Ivanka is, how shall we say, far more attractive and has a better figure than her friend. With the Lysandra. Ooh. And there's another amusing anecdote here. Trump always handed over the credit card after a little feigned outrage about how much money he was giving her mother. He would barely acknowledge me, except to ask if Ivanka was the prettiest or the most popular girl in our grade. Before I learned that the Trumps have no sense of humor about themselves, I remember answering honestly that she was probably in the top 5. Who's prettier than Ivanka? I recall him asking once with genuine confusion. Before correctly naming the 2 girls I'd had in mind, he described one as a young Cindy Crawford, while the other, he said, had a great figure. Though he never remembered my name, he seemed to have a photographic memory for changes in my body. I'll never forget the time Ivanka and I were having lunch with her brothers at Mar-a-Lago one day. And while Trump was saying hi, Don Jr. swiped half a grilled cheese sandwich off my plate. Ivanka scolded him, but Trump chimed in, "Don't worry, she doesn't need it. He's doing her a favor." Conversely, he'd usually congratulate me if I'd lost weight. Yes, my weight problem and Donald Trump's evil presidency. I don't know. This is a well-known cliche that good-looking, or especially good-looking women, will make a point of having a friend, a close friend, who is, shall we say, doesn't represent any kind of threat, because she is nowhere near as good-looking. And this is going to incite envy, is it not, in the less good-looking woman? Especially since, I don't know, actually this has a byline, Lysandra Orstrom. So she got paid for this. She got paid for what is a very nasty thing to do. Who is Lysandra Orstrom? Ivanka Trump's ex-BFF said she was a brat in school who hated books on poor people. Yes, she's a journalist for The Observer and Huffington Post. Okay, so she's a journalist. Yeah, don't trust journalists. Especially don't trust female journalists. And especially don't trust female journalists with body issues. Don't. You're just, stay away from those people. If you see them coming, run across the street. I was thinking, where have I seen this kind of story before? And there was a story 2 years ago in The Cut. And I mentioned The Cut, yesterday? Yeah, white people suck, right? Tell us why white people suck. A long video about this. So someone called Anna Silman wrote a piece. And who is Anna Silman? Wait for it. She's a senior writer at The Cut, New York Mag. She is a female journalist who looks as if she might have body issues. But it's called "We Thought We Knew Faith Until We Didn't: The Making of a White Nationalist Poster Girl." And it's all about how this woman knew Faith Goldie before anyone had heard of Faith Goldie. And apparently Faith Goldie's political positions changed since she was in high school. I know it sounds outrageous, sounds fantastic, but apparently this is what had happened. Okay, so who cares, right? Who cares? But just to give you an idea of female psychology, and the importance of weight. After middle school, Faith underwent a major physical change, losing a dramatic amount of weight in one summer. Being skinny was prized at our school, but such a seemingly overnight transformation was jarring. The weight loss yielded a change in Faith's social life as she became a sudden magnet for male attention, which she relished. Girls from school remember it also yielding a change in her personality. Strutting confidently through the halls with her newly dark and flat ironed hair and short green school kilt, the new Faith seemed harder and colder, more aloof than the warm person who had tried to make everyone, well, almost everyone, feel included and welcome. But it gets worse. But there were some students who never found her warm. Even in kindergarten, I witnessed her being overwhelmingly cruel to people, and she always had a way of explaining her way out of it, recalls one former classmate. She says that while Faith never broadcast her bullying, which might be why so many remember her as charming, she picked her targets strategically, homing in on girls she knew wouldn't have the power to speak out. Quote, she wasn't running around being a mean, sadistic piece of shit. She was running around being incredibly charismatic. She had an intuitive understanding of what people wanted to see. She had this capacity to be whoever you wanted her to be. So this story came out 2 years ago. So let me just check a date here, okay? So Faith Goldie was born in 1989. Which makes her 31 years old now. So this story was written 2 years ago when the person who wrote it and the other person interviewed was 29 years of age. People are in kindergarten when they are 5 years old. I'm expected to believe, we're talking about a woman here who is put out because of how a 5-year-old acted. I didn't go to kindergarten because it didn't exist where I lived, but I started school at 6, and what do I remember? Nothing, almost nothing. What things that happened to me? Talking about a 5-year-old as incredibly charismatic. She had this capacity to be whoever you wanted her to be. We're talking about a 5-year-old here. They barely have personalities. But apparently, this 5-year-old who was singled out by another 5-year-old. Some years ago, a woman I know, her daughter was in the 3rd grade, and she told me that her daughter had got an incomplete on the, what you call it, behavior part of the report card. So she went to what PTA meeting to talk about this. And the teacher explained that all of the girls in this 3rd grade class had got an incomplete. Now, this was in Point Grey, Vancouver, which is one of the nicest, calmest places in Canada, in the world even. And it's a very rich indeed neighborhood now. It wasn't all that rich at that time. But the teacher explained that these girls are just out of control. They're just constantly forming cliques and breaking them up and picking on each other. And I thought, this is a teacher this is an adult woman who is admitting that she can't control a bunch of 9-year-olds. But actually, I bring this story up to mention that girls, even more than boys, their alliances are constantly shifting at those ages, and it really means nothing that people become your friend or they stop being your friend over, I don't know, less than trifles. But we're looking at big political issues now on the basis of someone's half a grilled cheese sandwich being snatched away at lunch, or supposedly a 5-year-old girl bullying another 5-year-old girl, even while no one knew about the bullying because she was so selective. John Knox famously called this the monstrous regimen of women. But that is the world that we live in now. Let's go final look at the chat here. Leon Davidovich Bronstein was the archetype of an Antifa. Indeed, we better know him as Trotsky. He did a very highly intelligent man. Tom Wolfe mentioned this in his short story, which I believe is called The Commercial, that this question of, how far you want to be in with the system, do you want to sell out? And he quoted Trotsky to say, you don't need to believe in the bus company to get to where you want to go. Trotsky also said that you may not be interested in politics, but politics is interested in you. Okay, what else do we have here in the chat? These journalists are insane, says Long Nards. Well, again, the personal is not only the political for them, it is the sociological. I just, frankly, if I can't even imagine circumstances in which I'd be carrying on about being bullied in kindergarten or in grade school or elementary school, as we call it here, or in middle school. From time to time, I was bullied at school. I suppose, if you want to look at a male version of a woman, there's Rod Dreher at the American Conservative, who's constantly going on about these incidents that he suffered in high school. It's like, it's like one day in the life of Ivan Denisovich. The pain. If a man is constantly rabbiting on about all of the horrible things that were done to him in high school, and there seems to be no immediate proximate cause, this suggests that he's a really obnoxious person, even more obnoxious than most teenage boys are. Journalism is rattled by these people, says AlphaGo. Metal Mike, Melania liked Wham and avoided people who listened to The Cure and Metallica. Okay, yes, okay. Metal Mike explains there was a story in the New York Times in 2016 where they interviewed Melania's childhood friends. Same kind of thing. Will Kevin discuss Obama's new book? Oh, I'd have to read it. I don't know that I could. Who was the, let's see, she was a prime female journalist with body issues and a gay black husband. Is that the woman that ran Reddit? This Chinese woman with the gay black husband? And they were suing their co-op in New York City. A lot of lawsuits with that couple. Yeah. Chad Chadson says, wow, I love the Trumps now. Hikmah Warrior, tattoos are haram in Orthodox Jewish circles, so I doubt Ivanka sports a shamuta stamp. Yeah. It's just, again, what? Ivanka married better than I did? Or maybe, I don't know what this other woman's married, Well, she's certainly more famous than I am. And I don't know, on the other hand, Ivanka has 3 children, which to career women these days, 3 children at Ivanka's age, that would seem to be a kind of torture or death. So, swings and roundabouts. That is the show for today. I don't know. I think the lighting experiment worked out pretty well. I'd like to, I don't know. We don't need to see the computer, say, or the microphone for that matter. But I'll see if there's anything I can do about that. I'll be back on the air tomorrow. That is Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. And tomorrow is Theater Thursday. And I'm going to be talking about a very exciting, a very dark movie, which was exceedingly controversial at the time. And it's from 1932, directed by Mervyn Leroy and starring Paul Muni. And it is called I Am a Fugitive from a Chain Gang. And in terms of telling you what the movie is about, you cannot get a better title than that. And on Friday, I am going to be discussing White Eagle, Red Star, the Polish-Soviet War of 1919 to 1920 by Norma Davis. And this is to honor our Polish friends for saving us, saving Europe from being overrun by the Bolsheviks, because it was indeed Poland that saved the West. If you enjoyed the show or any part of it, I'd appreciate it if you click on the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you have not already done so. If you would like to support this live stream with a donation, we greatly appreciate it, especially at this time of upheaval and, well, upgrade. My PayPal account is kevin_grace@hotmail.com. Once again, kevin_grace@hotmail.com. If you're Canadian, you can send donations directly via Interac at kevingrace@shaw.ca. And as always, I leave you with this. In these days of social atomization and societal collapse, I do dearly wish that you, my dear listeners and viewers, manage to form a genuine human connection in order to ease the burden. Good night.